What point are extreme demons no longer understood? When I say this, I'm wondering what point people are unable to scope out the difficulty of a level just by watching it. When outsiders see GD extremes, they don't understand the true mechanics of the level. They see a bunch of bright lights, fast gameplay, hard timings, and think they'd never be able to beat it. But this is true even for veterans these days because of the increasing skill ceiling. And past a certain difficulty threshold, Geometry Dash levels stop communicating their true difficulty visually. From that point onward, players can only judge them by aesthetics rather than their underlying mechanics without playing the level and looking at stupid frame perfect counters. For example, fast gameplay is supposedly hard while slow gameplay is easy. We all know that when the ship doesn't rotate, the level's impossible. Somehow red and black means the level's hard. We associate certain visual languages with difficulty before we've even considered the gameplay. When a level has strobing effects or flashing lights, the perceived difficulty is even higher. I bet that a lot of people would think Sonic Wave is harder than Glungus Adventures because Sonic Wave looks flashy and Glungus looks like a joke. A lot of information is lost through watching a level. A literal CBF perfect looks like only a hard timing to most. Here's an easy timing, hard timing, frame perfect, and a CBF perfect. Looking at each side by side, which one's which? You can't tell. And I bet that you especially wouldn't be able to tell when it's mixed in with effects, other clicks, or is even partially blind. For a few years, this point has been reached, because once a level reaches a sufficient difficulty, what gives it its power is less and less the timings, and increasingly more the editor. Think of the most intimidating level you know. Slaughterhouse? Good choice. If you had the ability to go in the editor and change anything you could to make it look visibly harder, there's barely anything you could do. A lot of the perceived difficulty is in the aesthetic of its art style. Slaughterhouse already looks close to the maximum imaginable difficulty, and I think any extreme has this potential. It's all up to the use of the editor and how the artist implements the style. There's already so much happening on top of the fast speed that you can't really understand the difficulty of the timings. The perspective is skewed because you can't process that much information at once, so all you see is a blur of gameplay rather than a true understanding of each click. Difficulty is no longer something you can just watch, it's something you have to play to understand. You used to know how hard a level was. Levels were basically layouts. Even during the Bloodbath era, you could tell what a spike was. Now compare that to whatever the hell this is. The only judgment you have now is your own experience. Believe it or not, you're only watching a representation of the gameplay. For the ship game mode, clicks are invisible. There's more dimensions. Click, hold, and release with gravity. Alignments make frame perfects almost impossible. However, none of them are shown to you. Wave is the exception. Unlike ship, you can literally see the movement being controlled, which is why Wave has become the visual symbol of difficulty. It exposes mechanics that other game modes hide. Besides Wave, difficulty these days only exists in information that's invisible. I don't think it's as much about difficulty, rather than a question of how intimidating you can make it look. Bloodlust looks way harder than Zodiac, but it's way easier. Unless we get Terrence Tao himself to theorize a mathematical formula for the difficulty of GD levels, which we should, it will always remain inconclusive. Geometry Dash didn't become impossible to understand because the levels got too hard. It became impossible to understand because the information needed to judge them isn't visible anymore. Once difficulty reaches a certain point, aesthetics becomes the only language spectators have left. And at this point, it's no longer something you just watch, it's something you have to experience. I don't think the threshold is top 1, and I don't think it's less demons either. I think the threshold is whenever the gameplay contains more information than spectators can visually process. That's the moment Geometry Dash stops displaying difficulty through gameplay and starts communicating it through art.